Hi everyone, I'm Denis Janot, Director of Field Engineering at Solo in EMEA. I'm going to present the new Gloo Mesh Gateway add-on that comes with Gloo Mesh 1.1, and I'm going to demonstrate a lot of its features. So first of all, let's take a look at what are the different options when you want to expose applications that are running on Istio. So you have the Istio Ingress Gateway, and you can use it to expose your application to the outside world. It has some good advantages like being natively integrated, obviously. You can define traffic shift for both like north-south and east-west traffic. You can leverage service entries. But it's not what we really call like an enterprise API gateway, right? It doesn't have like all these nice OAuth authentication, like rate limiting, and all these features that people expect from an enterprise API gateway. At Solo, we have like an enterprise API gateway called Gloo Edge, which is very popular and also based on Envoy, which is nice because same technology as Istio. But obviously, it's like any other gateway that you would use in front of Istio, right? You can secure the communication between the gateway and the different services, getting certificate from the Istio control plane, but you'll never be part of the mesh, right? So again, that's pros and cons, right? You get all these enterprise features, but on the other side, you are outside of the mesh. You have to define your rules for north-south in the API of the Gloo Edge gateway, and then use the API of Istio for the east-west policies. And you cannot leverage like Istio service entries or things like that. So because of that, some of our customers who have integrated Gloo Edge with Istio, they apply a model where they set up all these enterprise features like security features at the Gloo Edge level, and then they send the traffic to the Istio Ingress Gateway, and the Istio Ingress Gateway takes care of the routing. Obviously, it's not ideal because the requests are going through two layers of gateways, while it's always preferable to have less hops, and you still need like to use like the Gloo Edge API for all these enterprise features, and then the Istio API for the routing capability. Even if you can set north, south, and east, west there, so it's kind of it has been a good compromise for some people, but it's not ideal, right? So what we have done now is that we have this Istio Ingress Gateway powered by Gloo Mesh. Like we call it Gloo Mesh Gateway, but basically it's kind of the best of both worlds, where we are adding the Gloo Edge capability directly into the Istio Ingress Gateway, and we are configuring all the policies using the Gloo Mesh API. So with one API, you can now configure the north-south and east-west traffic and the security features and so on, right? So you get like the native integration of the Istio Ingress Gateway, the ability to use service entries and so on, and the benefit of the advanced features that you find generally in like enterprise API gateway. So the best of both worlds. And I know it's not that easy to understand the concept that way. So that's why I'm going to go and jump into the demo and show you that how it looks like in real world. So let me start with deploying. As you can see, we have like these three clusters like that, right? One where we have the Gloo Mesh management plane, and one with the Istio control plane cluster 1, and the same on cluster 2, right? So what I'm going to do is just like, because we will demonstrate like authentication with OAuth, I'm going to start by just deploying Keycloak on the cluster 1. So it will be nice because I'll be able to use it as my identity provider. So I'm just going to deploy Keycloak. It should be straightforward, and doesn't take so long. I also need to set probably an environment variable that I generally set to access the gateway API of cluster 1. So I think I already set that here, so I'm going to set it again because it's not available in this where I am in the demo. And what we are going to do is that as soon as Keycloak is deployed, we will configure it to have like 2 users, user 1 and user 2. And you see one has an email that finished by solo.io and one example.com, right? And it will be important when we will come to the end of this demo, right? So I have this rollout. I set up this environment, this variable here. Just let me check if I need something else. No, I think I should be good. So now I'm just like configuring Keycloak, and you know, from there I can go ahead. So what I have here is that I have an environment, and let me like do a port forward here so that I can take a look at my Gloo Mesh UI. So you can see it here, right? I have my Gloo Mesh UI, I have my 2 clusters registered. I have my gateways here, like on cluster 1, cluster 2, I have like a Istio Ingress gateway, a standard one. And I have my application that I can access on cluster 1 here. So I have to use HTTP. And you see I can access it, and the gateway and the virtual services on Istio that were needed to access them were coming with like the deployment of Bookinfo. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first like delete these objects, right? If I show you the current situation on cluster 1, I have like a gateway Bookinfo, and on cluster 1 I also have like a virtual service for that. And you see like the gateway listen on port 80, and the virtual service expose my product page, right? So I'm going to first delete these things here so that I don't have like them anymore, right? So I'm starting, you know, from scratch, and I want now using the Gloo Mesh API to make this application available again. And you'll see you will have like a lot of flexibility here, right? So we have like what we call a virtual gateway, CRD. We could configure everything in line here, but we can delegate to multiple objects so that we can separate the roles and responsibilities when it comes to exposing the application. So the first one is like what we call a virtual gateway, and it will be translated into Istio gateway. But what's nice is that you can select multiple ingress gateway in multiple clusters and have a unique virtual gateway setup, basically. So I'm going to generate that. Then I say I have a virtual host where I want to listen for any request from any domain, and I decide how to manage the routes based on another object. So we delegate this to a route table. Again, I could put everything in line in one single object, but as you can see, it's very nice because you can have one team that takes care of the domain and add like a matcher for prefix /app1, and then delegate the routes under /app1 to another team. Right, so I'm going to create that. And finally, I have this route table where I can define the different matchers, and I say I want to send a request to the product page, right? So I'm doing that. And now, if I'm going back here, I should be able still to access it, right? You see, we are kind of back in the same kind of configuration that we would get if we would do these gateway and virtual services by ourselves. The only difference is that you can see we can separate the roles and responsibility, but we can also configure all the gateways at once if we want, for example. So we can see here we have like I think it's under Gloo Mesh that I put it here. So you see similar to what we had before. And again, if I go to the gateway, I will have something similar. I don't remember where it is in Istio system. So it's like the Bookinfo gateway here. So you see everything similar, but managed by Gloo Mesh, right? So Gloo Mesh is taking care of all this configuration. So now let's see what we can do. Another thing that we can do easily is like just secure the communication through TLS. Again, we could do that by creating a secret for our certificates, and then when the secret is there, updating the gateway. But in this case, we will update the virtual gateway, right? To say we want to use like this secret for the TLS configuration. So instead of having to go through all the gateways one by one, we could just like create one virtual gateway configuration, and it will be applied to all the gateways, right? So if I go there now, I need to use HTTPS, and I should still be able to access my application. So that's good. Now, what we want to do is, let's say I want to split the traffic between multiple clusters, right? So if you remember here, we have like the request coming from this user going through the gateway to the product page or the reviews and whatever. And we also have reviews on the other cluster. So what we are trying to do now is that we are going to expose the review service directly through the gateway. And we are going to split the traffic, sending some of the requests from the gateway to V1 and V2 here, and some of the requests to V3 on the other side. So doing this multi-cluster traffic from the gateway in a very, very simple way. So we have this notion of what we call a traffic policy in Gloo Mesh. So we are going to say when we have some request for the review service, we want to do a split, like 75% of the request will go on reviews V3 on cluster 2, 15% of review V1 on cluster 1, and 10% V2 on cluster 1. And we want to match or to select the virtual host and the route table we have created before, so that this traffic policy will be valid for east-west traffic, but also for north-south traffic. So if I apply this here, then I update my route table to expose the review service and to send the request to reviews on cluster 1. And finally, I need to set up like an access policy to define that I want to allow the ingress gateway to communicate with the review service, because I have deployed everything and configuring Istio in a zero trust model where I have to define exactly which service I want to allow to communicate together. So if I'm going to the Gloo Mesh UI here, you will see that I have different policies, and I allow, for example, the ingress gateway on cluster 1 to talk to the product page. That's the only thing I am allowing right now. So I'm going to update this policy to also allow it to communicate with the review service. So you see the selector, any review service. I don't specify a cluster, so just any review service, right? If I apply that and I go there, I will be able to see that now it's also applied to this review service. So you see in real time, the UI is very nice because it tells you based on what you have set in your policy, I will show you what are the current running workloads across all your clusters that are matching. So it's a really, really nice way to check if you made a mistake or something like that. So now we should be able to look at this review service. And if you are familiar with the book info, the V1 of reviews is no stars, V2 is black stars, and V3 is red stars. So if everything goes well, I should be able to get response from, oh, you see I get it, right? From the cluster 2. So it proves that 75% of the request will go through the other cluster. Sometime I will get, no stars V1. Sometime I will get like the black stars. But I really show you these things. And to make it happen, it had to translate everything in the gateway side, but also it had to create like destination rules to define all these subsets. It had to leverage the service entries that have been created, so that the way Gloo Mesh works is that you have a really nice discovery that is a lot better than the native Istio endpoint discovery service, where we discover the workload and we create service entries for everything we discover, and they are leveraged by this kind of policy that we have just created. So let me just like delete this policy and go back to the original root table, that we can go to the next step with a clear environment. So the next step is, let's say I want to do exactly the same, but instead of splitting my traffic between, explicitly, I want to have all the requests going to reviews locally until it becomes unavailable, and then I want to go to the next cluster in the same zone if I cannot find the same zone in the same region, and if I cannot, like in any cluster, right? So I localize failover. So for that, I create a new host name that's called like a reviews global, that is backed by all the review service across all my clusters. And I have like an outlier detection here to determine how do I know that the service becomes unavailable, right? And then I update my root table, and you see the difference here, that I still have my matcher for reviews, but my destination is now a virtual destination, which is this global root, right? So I apply this, and again, I need to update my access policy, because I need to, in fact, I already did it. It's the same update as before, so it should tell me, yeah, and change, right? So because this is the same communication that is going to occur. And if I run the curl again, then what you will see is that it's going to black or no stars, black stars or no stars, because currently it's just local, right? So I'm going to make it unavailable locally. So I'm going to patch the services locally to add like a sleep command, so that they become like unresponsive, basically. So you can do that. You can check like in cluster 1, I will have like the pods, are terminated, and the new ones have this sleep command, right? So if I go and run my curl again, it still works, even if they are not responding locally, because automatically it failed over to the services that on the other side, and you can see it because you see the red stars that is only available on the second cluster. So very easy, failover, transparent, right? So let me just patch the deployment again to make them available. So I just remove this command, this sleep command that I've added, and in 2 minutes it will be available again, right? Because I have like a 2 minutes time setup here, what we call the base ejection time. So it will wait 2 minutes before fading back to the original services. So I can delete my virtual destination because you've used it, and we can go back to the original root table. So we've seen how we can easily expose our services across different clusters. I did a configuration on cluster 1, but I want to apply it to cluster 1 and cluster 2. I just have to update my virtual gateway and say I want to select the STO ingress gateway of cluster 1 and cluster 2, and I will have it exposed in two sides directly without doing anything else. But now let's do something even better, right? So when I go to cluster 1, I have like a Gloo Mesh add-ons here, and you can see I have like a rate limiting pods that use Redis as a backend, and I have also like an X.pod, right? So we are going to use that to apply rate limits. So we will go and create what we call a rate limit server config. What we say is that if there is like a type equal A and a number equal 1, then I want to apply this rate limit of 1 minute. And then we define in the root table how we find the value of the number of the type, right? So the number, we get it from a header that's called X number, and the type, we get it from a header that's called X type, right? So I just like select that, and now if I do run a curl command and I add this header, right, X type A, X number 1, I should get like a 200 first time and a 429 after, right? I'm rate limited, right? If I don't use any headers, then I can use it, right? It's I'm not rate limited. So it's very powerful because you can create like tons of different descriptors, right? Like first case, I have these 2 values. Second case, I check other values. Third case, I check only one of the value. force case, that's my fallback that applies to everyone, for example. So you can really define fine-grained rate limit policies that way. So again, we switch back to the original root table. And now we are going to do securing everything with OAuth. So we will create like a new secret with the keycloak secret. So you see this $secret is something that is already set. When I deployed keycloak, I got it. So it's somewhere in my shell. And we will define an object we call Autoconfig. So it's very powerful. You can say, I want to do authentication with OAuth 2. This is like the URL of my application. This is my secret, and so on, right? So I create this object, and then I can define in my root table where I want to apply it. So it's very powerful again because it's a reference to a config, right? So I put that here, and it will apply to this root. I could have different roots with different matcher, and some root will have it, some root will not have it. And that means that I don't have to really define everything. I can just call this Autoconfig object here. So let me just do that. And now, if I go here and I try to access my app, right, it's redirected me to this page. I authenticate with user 1, which is, you remember, it finished by solo.io. Okay, and I can access my page, right? So everything is fine, is working well. But I can go even deeper, and that's one of the things that is really nice, because we took all the capabilities that we already had before in Gloo Edge. And if you already played with Gloo Edge, this Autoconfig is the same Autoconfig. It's exactly the same CRD. There's nothing different, right? You can just use exactly the same configuration. And one of the things that people really like in Gloo Edge, for example, is this authentication with OAuth and then authorization with OPA, using Rego. So we have like our OPA engine into the XSLT pod. You don't even need to have the OPA server, nothing. We just have the OPA library there. So what you need to do is just like provide your Rego rule in a config map. What you can see here in the rule, I check if the email will finish by solo.io, right? Because I decode the JOT token and I take the claim called email and I look at is finished by solo or not, right? So I create this config map and I update my Autoconfig. I just have to add a second step. So you see, first step, authentication, second step, authorization, right? So I just do this and do that. I go back to here. I can still access because I am using user 1, which is having an email that finished by solo.io. But now let's say I go to an HTTPS here and I say user 2. And you see, my access is denied because I'm not authorized. My email finished by example.com, right? So that's it. That's like a brief demonstration. You can use anything that we have in this XDot thing. Like we have like a ton of different options here. So I could do demonstrations like that forever. But I think it's a good start so for you to understand how it works. And if you have not looked at the way what you have in Gloo Mesh 1.1, I really encourage you to have a look at it. You have this very nice graph feature that we have added. So everything I have done so far, right? I can see what I did here, right? So I add like this, like ingress gateway communicating with the product page. I got like the communicating with the review v1, review v2, review v2 communicating to rating, and the ingress gateway on the first cluster sending requests to the reviews, v3 on the second cluster that also talk to the ratings on the second cluster. So very similar to what you see in Kali, right? But with the advantage of being multi-cluster aware, right? In Kali, you would see this if you go to Kali in cluster 1. And you would see the communication from here to there, but you will never see the communication from here to there, right? Because you would have to go to Kali on cluster 2 there to see that. So it's really like we consolidate all the metrics and we make them available in one UI like that. Then you can click, you can see, do I have like access policies? What kind of policies are enforced for each type of service and so on, right? So again, I don't want to go too deep into this new capabilities in Gloo Mesh 1.1, but I really encourage you to have a look at it. We have like I did this demonstration based on some of the new labs of our new version of the Gloo Mesh workshop. I really encourage you to go to the event page. We are delivering tons of different workshops like Istio getting started, like Istio advanced and Gloo Mesh, Gloo Portal, and many things, right? So I really also encourage you to go there. So I hope you like the demo, and you will contact us on Slack soon to try it out. Take care.